History rarely remembers the first strike. It remembers the second, the one that proves the war was never under control. The hydroelectric dam, California, that was never a battlefield in the official records. And yet, it should have been, because by the time that valley came under fire, the world had already fractured beyond repair. NATO was no longer an alliance, it was a remnant, a coalition held together by inertia rather than unity. It began in Georgia, didn't it? A peaceful transition, NATO withdrawing, Pax Armata stepping in, a symbolic handover of power. A lie. Pax Armata never intended peace. Their ambush of Marine Raider Gunnery Sergeant Dylan Murphy in Tempest 1/2 was the opening move, brutal, calculated, and absolute. Murphy survived, barely, a lone witness to the birth of a new kind of war, not nation versus nation, but system versus system. And behind that system, Melissa Mills, CIA handler, architect, or perhaps something worse. She helped create Pax Armata, a controlled enemy designed to unify NATO through fear, a manufactured threat to justify power. But control is an illusion in war. Alexander Kincaid proved that. Ah yes, Kincaid, former SAS, ghost of past operations, betrayed, abandoned, reshaped into something far more dangerous. He didn't just lead Pax Armata, he evolved it, turned it into a decentralized war machine, modular units, autonomous command, no borders, no accountability. And most importantly, no visibility. Project Velas. Exactly, a system capable of erasing entire operations from satellite surveillance. The moment Pax Armata secured Velas, the war became invisible. Which brings us, inevitably, to California. The hydroelectric dam, not listed among primary objectives, not mentioned in NATO briefings, and yet essential. Because power in that war was no longer just military, it was informational. Energy grids fed command infrastructure, relay stations, black sites, and more importantly, fallback nodes. After Gibraltar, after Cairo, after Brooklyn, NATO began preparing for collapse. Understandable. Gibraltar exposed Pax's brutality, public executions, psychological warfare. Cairo revealed their reach. Brooklyn proved nowhere was safe. And Tajikistan, that was the turning point. Yes, the discovery of NXC, nano-compound weaponry capable of catastrophic destruction. Pax Armata wasn't just fighting a war, they were engineering the future battlefield. So NATO adapted, quietly. They established decentralized infrastructure across US territory. The hydroelectric dam was one of them. A redundancy hub, power distribution, encrypted communications, and, if necessary, a final defensive choke point. But Pax Armata knew. Of course they did. They'd always did. The first assault on the dam was swift, surgical. Pax Armata didn't try to hold it, they tested it. Probing NATO defences, measuring response time, identifying command structure weaknesses. And when NATO reinforced the position, they made their mistake. The second attack was not a test, it was a statement. Rush doctrine. Yes. Overwhelming forward pressure, sequential distraction of defensive nodes, a relentless push, not to occupy, but to dismantle. NATO forces, remnants of units like Dagger 1/3, were redeployed to hold the dam. Murphy among them, a soldier who had already seen the truth behind the war, now tasked with defending its last illusions. Pax Armata deployed multi-layered assault teams. Vedmak drone swarms disrupted airspace. Espada shock units breached defensive lines. Meanwhile, NATO relied on legacy doctrine, fixed positions, defensive emplacements, predictable fallback lines. Outdated. Hopelessly. But the true brilliance of the attack wasn't tactical, it was psychological. Explain. The dam was visible, civilian, symbolic. A sunny valley turned battlefield. Pax Armata wanted it seen. A message. Exactly. Nowhere is safe. By then, Murphy had uncovered the truth about Mills, about Pax, about everything. Yes, that the war itself was engineered, that Pax Armata was never meant to win, only to exist. But Kincaid changed that. He didn't just break free, he proved the model worked. So tell me, was the dam ever meant to be held? No, it was meant to be contested. A battlefield not of territory, but of ideology. Precisely. NATO represented order, fragile, outdated, clinging to structure. And Pax Armata? The future. Decentralised, invisible, uncontrollable. And in that Californian valley under a clear sky, the illusion of control died. Not with an explosion, but with a realisation. The war was never meant to be won.